It's 5 o'clock. I'm going to call to order this August 31st meeting of the Utility Service Board. And before we get into our main agenda, we do need to amend the agenda, vote to amend the agenda because we've got an additional item added as item 5A, which is a request for approval of a MOU for the Titchener demolition. So are there any questions before we address this? Okay, then is there a motion to amend our agenda to include this additional item?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of amending the agenda? And Latrina, can you call the roll?
Yes. Roberts?
Aye.
Kapler?
Aye.
Burnham?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Parmenter?
Yes.
Okay, so our agenda is amended. Oh man, this has been a day. Okay, so first we need to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any questions or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second.
All right, and Latrina, can you please call the roll? Latrina?
Parmenter?
Yes.
Burnham?
Yes.
Roberts?
Aye.
Kapler?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, minutes are approved. Next up, approval of the claims. We have standard invoices in the amount of $474,666.29. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve standard invoices?
So move.
Second.
All right, Latrina, can you please call the roll?
Sherman? Sherman?
Yes.
Kapler?
Yes.
Parmenter?
Yes.
Burnham?
Yes.
Roberts?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Next up are utility bills in the amount of $28,423.97. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve
So
utilities?
move.
Second.
All right, and Latrina, call the roll, please.
Burnham?
Yes.
Kapler?
Yes.
Parmenter?
Yes.
Roberts?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
All right, those are approved. Next up are wire transfers in the amount of $360,590.63. Any questions on wire transfers? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve wire transfers?
So move.
Second.
All right, and Latrina?
Parmenter?
Yes.
Roberts?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Burnham?
Yes.
Kapler?
Yes. All right. Next up, customer refunds in the amount of $521.97. Any questions about customer refunds? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the refunds?
So move.
Second.
And Latrina?
Roberts?
Yes.
Burnham?
Yes.
Parmenter?
Yes.
Sherman?
Yes.
Kapler?
Yes. Okay, customer refunds are approved. Next up, we have the approval of the consent agenda, and I'll turn this over to Vic.
Sorry, I lost it. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to present the consent agenda, which is in totals $13,927.36. The first is to Peachtree Incorporated, $6,731.36 for installation of a fuel overfill alarm and replacement of cathode tube in the fuel tank at Dillman. And then the second contract is to Indiana Door and Hardware for $7,196 for installation of a locking crash bar on the customer service doors at the service center. Does any board member wish to take any of these items up separately? Hearing none, if there's no opposition, the consent agenda will be approved as recommended by staff. Hearing no opposition, the consent agenda is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. All right, now we have the item that was added to our agenda, the request for approval of a memorandum of understanding for the Titchener demolition. And I will turn this over to Chris Wheeler to tell us about it.
Thank you. This is Chris Wheeler with City Legal. And this has actually been a situation that dates back at least as far as 2008. With a house that was built on City of Bloomington property out at Lake Lemon. The house is abandoned and severely dilapidated now. As far back as 2008, City of Bloomington Utilities had agreed that the owner of the house should demolish it and remove it, but that effort never transpired. Today, somebody else is buying the property or a property next door. I can't recall the exact facts. Bottom line is that this house is an obstruction to their view of the lake. And the folks that are purchasing this property are willing to demolish this structure that's on City of Bloomington Utilities property. So it solves our problem. At no cost to the city. They're willing to incur the expense to improve their own property values and their sight lines to the lake. So the memorandum of understanding spells out that they would be given the opportunity to come onto our property for the sole and only purpose of demolishing and removing the structure. That's what the memorandum outlines. There is a right of entry then that would be signed that does grant them the actual legal right to enter upon the property for the purpose of demolishing this structure. And then there are two separate documents that are being signed by the husband and wife who own this property. That is a waiver and a release so that should anybody in the effort to demolish this structure get injured, that they're the ones doing this, and it's not going to be a liability issue for the city. So those are the four documents that are presented. The reason it came at us so quickly at the very last second this evening is that I did not anticipate that these nice folks would be signing all of this documentation and getting it back to us in time for tonight. They are set to close on the property. And if we had to wait for 2 more weeks, it could mess up their opportunity to get the property closed timely. And I didn't want to lose this chance for the city. And so I'm glad that you're indulging us to bring this to you at such a late hour of the day. So staff recommends approval of this agreement, the MOU, the rights of entry, and I'm happy to answer questions as best I can. Thank you.
Jim.
Yeah, Chris, you may not know anything about the history of this, but I'm just wondering, why wasn't the property demolished after 2008, 12 years ago?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I have a letter from my predecessor to the property owner advising that the city has decided that they're not going to do anything to share costs. Or take any action to take down the structure themselves, and are instructing the owner to do that, to take the structure down. So I have that letter, but that's all I have showing me the history. I couldn't find I was trying to find something in the last couple of minutes here before this meeting started that would suggest that there might have been some resolution passed by the board. I couldn't find that yet. So this may have already been addressed once before, but it would have been with different people. So the reason why I'm still bringing it back to the board tonight, it's appropriate because now we're dealing with John and Marta Titchener when we weren't dealing with them in the past. So I don't know why things never got to the point where the house was ever actually taken down. But I think it's one of those things where, we're a utility, Jim. We work on water and wastewater and stormwater, and we're not really stewards of a lake very good. This is not really something that a utility is designed to do, is to be stewards of property around a lake and a lake itself. So it's removed from our sight and out of our mind. And I think that it's just easy for people to not pay attention to what's going on out there. And that might be the best explanation we have.
So you might have been more activist if something like this arose now. You might be.
I'm sorry?
You might be more activist if something like this arose today.
Well, we have another example of this going on the other side of the lake, and we are being more active and progressive about it right now. So I would say my answer at the moment is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Megan?
Forgive me if this is a poor question, but you mentioned that they approached us about this, correct? And their reasoning is because it's encroaching on their view. If we would happen to build a structure there or something one day, I guess because of their reasoning wanting to take it down, there's nothing that says that we can't build whatever we would want to there later.
It's not a poor question at all. No, that's not really what's going on here. It's the building is severely dilapidated, and it's been, to my knowledge, vacant for a very long time, and just it's an abandoned property that's gone into great disrepair. If we had decided to build a utility structure on our property that for whatever reason was being, for whatever reason we wanted to put something out there, that would be our right. And there isn't anything that would prevent us from being able to put that structure there. That's our right to do that.
Thank you.
Other questions? I actually have a quick one. So this dilapidated structure, is it legally considered to be abandoned? There's nothing in there. It's been vacant for a very long time. So if you were looking at unsafe law, for example, this by definition is an abandoned structure. Okay. All right. Very good. And I noticed that Jason just joined us. Hi, Jason. So Jason, we were just addressing an additional item that was added to the agenda. And we had some paper sent out. It's requesting approval for memorandum of understanding for Titchener demolition of an abandoned structure. So I didn't know if you had any questions for Chris, because we're at the point of looking at a motion for this.
I don't think so. I read the materials when they came through this afternoon, and it, unless I missed something in the discussion, it looked pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, if there are no further questions for Chris, then is there a motion to approve this MOU?
So move.
Second?
All right, and Latrina, can you please call the roll?
Parmenter,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
Kapler,
Yes?
Roberts,
Yes.
Burnham.
Yes.
Okay, this is approved. Thank you. Now, before we go on to old business, I wanted to remind the public that if you're watching our Facebook Live feed, that if you have any public comment you would like to give, you can do that by entering that in the comments section, and then Holly will read that publicly in our meeting. So please think about if you would like to make public comment a little later on in the meeting. All right, so next we have, is there any old business from the board? Any old business from staff? None? Okay. Any new business from the board? And new business from staff?
None.
All right. I believe we have one subcommittee report from the Rules and Regulations Subcommittee. Is that correct?
No, they meet tomorrow.
Oh, they're meeting tomorrow. Okay. Then there are no subcommittee reports. What about staff reports?
I've just got 3 short things. The first one is I on behalf of all the staff, I'd like to say how nice it is to see Julie's face back on Zoom.
Hey, we're glad to have you here.
Good here.
We presented our budget to the city council during budget hearings on the 20th of August, and it went well. We received the straw vote recommendation of 8-0. There was one member who didn't vote. So we've gotten through that much of it, and we'll continue finalizing numbers and getting ready for the next phase of the budget process. The other thing is that we continue sampling at the wastewater treatment plants and working for SARS-CoV-2. And we're starting to get some results, but so far we've had non-detects or very close to non-detects in the early samples. So James has been managing that. So if anybody has any questions about that, James is the guy to ask.
Oh, Julie.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about this. I didn't realize that it could be floating around in the wastewater after we're done processing it. So James, could you elaborate a little bit for me?
Yeah, so RNA of the virus is kind of left. The virus may break down, but the RNA is still left in the wastewater, in the fecal matter. And so we can test through that way. And so we're testing the RNA, and we're kind of seeing gene copies per volume. And so we've been doing that, and we actually just got in some stuff. And so I'm updating a spreadsheet that we have. We have 8 sampling sites around the city, each wastewater plant, and then 6 additional sites. And so, and as Vic said, most of them are less than the detection limit. There are some that are showing higher, specifically around student housing apartments and things of that nature.
So the testing sites are before it gets to the plant?
6 of them are, and then 2 of them are at the influent of the wastewater treatment plants.
And so if it's just the RNA that's left over, even if it gets through the treatment system and it gets back out into the water, that's not a way that people can get it, right? Okay.
Correct. No, and even when you're testing it, the virus isn't transmitted or being able to be transmitted through the wastewater at that point. It's broken down.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Oh, I see Jason.
It's not really a question, but Vic, I just wanted to issue thanks to you and your staff for the water main break that they addressed on the north side yesterday. I was out walking early Sunday morning and saw a river running down the streets. And I'm not sure if anyone called it in before me, which was a little before 8 o'clock, but they were out there pretty swiftly and worked on it all day. And I saw them kind of finishing up on things today. So thank you for that quick action.
Thanks so much.
Jim.
Is this time for comments? I don't have anything, just a comment.
Vic, did you have any other staff report?
Nope, that's all I have.
Okay. Then I guess we are in comments.
Okay, well, just a couple things. One of the things that I wanted to mention with my friend Jason is, as we move forward, the board, I should say, will have a lot more conversation to do with infrastructures and pipes and breaks and that sort of thing. And I'm glad to hear of a great response. And that is another conversation for another day with regard to our infrastructure and our piping throughout the city. Vic mentioned that at the city council presentation, there was 8-0 and one person wasn't there, or one person didn't vote, he said. I was a person that didn't vote for that. I'm sorry, I know it was a bad joke. I'm looking on faces and you guys cannot believe that. That is not true. It's my wicked sense of humor. One person was not there that night. But my comment is I really wanted to thank Vic and his staff for doing a stellar presentation. I've been on the board for a while, now as a liaison, and I'm getting used to that. So I would have expected no less, but I just want to give kudos to Vic and his staff for a wonderful presentation. Hopefully we can pass it in another month or so.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.
It's all because of Laura and Brad and the whole team putting all of that together.
Well, I was going to say that, but I thought I probably ought to acknowledge you as well. Thank you.
All right. And Holly, are there any public comments coming in on Facebook Live?
Yes, we do have one citizen who is curious why CBU isn't taking care of the building at Lake Lemon, since it's on our property, as opposed to the citizens taking care of the building that's on our property.
And turn that over to Chris or Vic.
The building was constructed illegally. It's not our building. It was built there by somebody else without permission. And it was determined to be a trespass. And the city had asked the previous owner, who was the one who put the building there in the first place, to have it removed. Again, I don't know the history that happened between getting them, asking them to remove their encroachment and now, but here we are now, and we are fortunate that somebody else is willing to remove that building that was originally put there through a trespass and an encroachment.
Mm-hmm. And so it's my understanding that the building itself isn't necessarily a detriment to CBU and our functions. It's not in the way of anything that, we would have a motivation to tear it down. It's just taking up space on our property, correct? So we don't really have any motivation to do anything about it currently, do we?
No, I would agree with that. It I think would be a misuse of the ratepayers' funds that they're paying into these utilities to be out there removing somebody else's transgressions and indiscretions.
Okay.
Gene, can I make a comment on that?
Sure. Thank you, Jason.
So just want to tell you that it's been some time ago, and maybe not even part of this administration, but the Property and Planning Subcommittee looked at this at one point, that we have actually lots of these encroachments around Lake Lemon. And I'm not sure that we ever did any follow up on that between administrations or not, but it might be something that we should revisit at some point, because to Chris's point, these structures have been, illegally constructed on CBU property. And so either we should, make them go away, or we should be collecting some kind of fee for them to encroach. So I would entertain looking at this more in the future if the administration wants to do so.
Yeah. So ordinarily, when you buy property that sits next to a waterway, generally the laws of real estate would have you owning right up to and oftentimes into the waterway. So if you buy property next to a river, generally speaking, you own to the middle of that river or creek. You don't own to the edge, you own to the middle. And then when you buy next to a lake, generally speaking, you own up to the edge of the water, sometimes actually out into the water, depending on the type of waterway. In this situation, however, it's a man-made lake. Lake Lemon was created for the purpose of retention of water in the case that the city needing to use water. That lake was constructed on a meets and bounds legal description that defines the property that the city owns, and within the property that the city owns sits a lake. When people buy property around this lake, they only own up to the edge of CBU's property line, not down to the water's edge. But people, thinking they understand riparian rights, which is what they're called, mistakenly start to build things up to the water's edge, which happens to be our property. So it's understandable how these things happen. But there again, I will say, we're a utility that doesn't have a presence out at Lake Lemon right now. We don't police that area, and these things happen without our knowledge often. In fact, always. So we end up having to deal with these things after they've been constructed.
So Chris, building a walkway from someone's house to where they could tie a boat up next to it is actually encroachment.
Building a walkway onto our property to get to the lake is an encroachment, and walking across our property to get to the lake is trespass.
Wow.
Hmm.
Okay. That's a hornet's nest.
You're supposed to go use the access points where they can put their boats in and go float around the water. But everybody treats it like it's just a man-made lake and that they own up to the water's edge. So it's a real mess. There are lots of these around the lake, and it's probably a good argument for, why utilities shouldn't be in the business of being lake managers.
Mm.
So again, I'll reiterate that if I would entertain property and planning looking at this, because not only in my mind is this an issue of fairness and riparian rights, but it's also likely a liability issue for the utility.
Mm.
And so, if you're going to build a walkway, maybe we'll say yes if we approve the plan and they pay a fee and they sign a waiver, or something like that. But we ought to get some kind of management protocol in place to address this in a uniform manner around the lake. If you just go on the Monroe County GIS, you can see, now the GIS is not always accurate, but it's a great quick reference. You can look at how the property line of what the city owns goes near the houses, and what Chris is saying is 100% correct. I can see where that mistake is made, but that's the property owner's responsibility to figure that out before they build anything.
Well, thank you. And so there are some issues we may want to look at in the future as a board. Holly, were there any other public comments?
No further questions or comments.
Okay. Well, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie, did you have something?
No, I so moved that we.
Oh, you both moved. Okay, so we are doubly adjourned. Thank you, everybody.